Hey guys, let's check it out. Hey guys, welcome to Outdoor Photo. It's obviously Gunther here, sitting on a seat. I've been joined by a couple of guys in the industry which are, in my opinion, some of the greatest names, and it is such a pleasure to know these guys. I'd like to thank and introduce each one of you guys. Thank you for coming out on probably the weirdest weather day of the year. So, on my left, Anton Bosman. Daniel West. And Brendon Cremer. All different genres, different brands, different everything. In this show, we'd like to chat about everything. We'd like to discuss, banter, whatever, just no bashing of the presenter. But,
the presenter.
Yeah. Anton, let's start with you. Who are you, where you're from, what's happening, where can guys find your details online and your work?
I'm from Midrand. That's where I live. Basically born in Joburg. Got involved in photography when I left school. Never got interested in it after that, working in a darkroom. And then some years later, picked up a camera and decided to do some landscape stuff. And the problem with landscapes, you've got to travel a lot. And then I started diverting my attention to buildings, architecture. I love architecture. I think, to me, a building is the ultimate expression of someone's creative ability. I mean, to conceptualize it on paper and to make it become real, that's incredible, you know. So I've taken to doing a lot of city and urbanscapes.
A simple example of that is the one building in Joburg that we went out the one morning to go and photograph. Yeah. And I only realized the other day that thing's actually suspended.
That's right.
The entire building is hanging from a center pillar or column.
Yeah, that's the one that had the old e-news sign on it. It used to be owned by Standard Bank years ago. I don't know if they still own it, but it's one of 2 or 3 buildings in the world that is suspended like that.
That's crazy.
It's amazing. Yeah,
crazy concept and build. Daniel, yourself, coming from a couple of different industries, but obviously sitting here for 2 weddings and commercial stuff.
That's it. Hi, I'm Daniel West. Thank you for having me. First of all, here, it's a complete honor. I've been in photography since my school days. I'm not going to give away my age at this point, but it's been a long time. I've started off with film in the darkroom, developing it. Felt like Christmas every time. I still shoot film. Film every now and again. It's just become so expensive, obviously. But other than that, I mean, I dealt into every genre just to kind of find my voice. Went into commercial and then into weddings. Kind of fell in love with the realness of weddings and everything, and then went back into commercial, to be honest. And now I'm like a hybrid shooter in between the weddings and the commercial, all in between. But the commercial isn't as broad as it was. It's more product driven now, more focused into that. And now we are diversing into the videography side of things, and it's quite interesting to
hybrid shooting at its maximum.
Absolutely, got to do it.
You're well.
Both sides.
Brendon, yourself, finally in town again?
Yeah, for a change.
For a change.
Sometimes I get home, I'm worried my dogs are going to bite me. Wildlife photographer. Been photographing for many years. Also, just from a background perspective, just had been guiding for wildlife for many years, and just having access to that, being in that industry, you know, picking up a camera came second nature sort of thing. And then I suppose being in the environment every day, doing it every day, putting in those hours, and you get better and better, you know. So
I love that saying of Gary Players, like the more you practice, the luckier you get.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, you know, photography is definitely one of those things, but I think it's the same as with anything. You know, we were talking just now before we started, putting in those 10,000 hours, you know. Yeah. And I think, you know, I always joke around and say, listen, you know, after the 10,000 hours, if you still can't get it right, maybe you start playing golf or something.
Yeah, I think that's part of I wanted to rant about the issue that I've got in these kinds of shows, that you guys always have the great conversations off camera. So next time I'm just going to set all the cameras up and I'll just tell you guys, hey, we'll start shortly. Don't worry, just continue with the discussion. But I think a big part of it, and just diving into that, is how people expect to just go in, buy some gear and get into photography, and it's going to be an overnight success. And the shocking rate you figure out how the Dunning-Kruger effect works.
Sure.
No, I think that's the thing, is that, it's like we were saying, 10,000 hours and whatever. And I think it's with everything in life, we were talking about doctors and accountants, everything like that. You didn't wake up one morning and were the greatest at your job ever.
Cut somebody's chest open and
took
change
some
your
time.
heart.
Yeah, exactly. So it takes time and it takes effort to get going. But I am a firm believer that the cameras and the technology available to us today makes it easier. Like people talk to me, what camera should I buy, or what should I this, whatever. And I say, listen, buy the best you can. I'm not. The better equipment you have, the easier it's going to be. Like if you don't have to worry about, but this this lens only doesn't go lower than f11, for example. It helps. You know what I mean? Like if you can shoot it. I remember old Nikon D3X days. You couldn't shoot over 400 ISO. You made it work, but it wasn't fun. You know what I mean? So
more of a challenge.
The better equipment that you have, the easier it's going to be.
I think a simple example of that is going out and photographing my son's rugby, but those games happen at 20 to 6.
Yeah.
It being winter right now, the sun's gone. And it's a primary school, so the spotlights, I think these 4 lights that we've got set up here are producing more light.
Yeah.
And I ended up shooting, because I can't go below 1,000th of a second. F2.8 was the best glass I could get out of rentals. And you eventually end up shooting at 12,800 ISO. You've got some magic that happens in software as well.
Sure.
But if I was shooting an F11 lens, it's a difficult story.
It's kind of crazy.
It does
so gear makes a difference, and that's what I love about having this conversation with you guys. We've pretty much set up almost all the brands here. We're missing one brand. They couldn't make it. We won't. Sony het gemaakt nie. No, it's nothing against the Sony guys. Check out the next episode. We'll have them represented as well. But you're shooting Fuji at the moment.
I am, yes. And I'm loving it.
Don't say it like that. Yeah, say it like that.
Yeah. For me, it was never about what brand I'm going to use. You were talking about, how do you develop? So you go and you buy the camera, what do you do? In all honesty, I think the biggest obstacle any person faces is composition. That's the biggest obstacle, because it's not a natural thing for anybody to get composition right, but it's something you can develop, and you can develop that by studying a lot of people's work. And what I mean by studying their work is to look at their work and to take ideas, to take concepts, to learn about composition. And I'm big on the rule of thirds, especially for my work. And for me, it's not really about what I was using. I was using all sorts of cameras, and then I won that Fuji X-T10, I think the one year at some competition. And I had to go down and do some work for ICC in Durban. And they actually asked me if I could do a cityscape for them at night. So they took me to the lookout point. I got to the lookout point. I was like, this is cool. And I had a Canon with me with a 70-200, and I get a good shot here. And I went back with my little rental car that evening. I didn't realize there was barbed wire fence right behind this wall. So here I am, I'm stuffed. What do I do now? And I had the X-T10 in the bag. I had a remote shutter, release shutter, and I had a Gorilla Pod. And I clamped this thing around this barbed wire, and I took a 5-image pano, and I thought, okay, let me see what it looks like. Put the images together. Got back to the conference room the next day. I showed them. They were like, great, when can we have it printed? But what blew me away was seeing the file sizes. So for the way I shoot only RAW. And I only shoot with the 3 principles of ISO, shutter speed, and f-stop. So for me, only RAW, and I couldn't believe the amount of information I was getting. So for the kind of work I do, I'm not a big fan of stacking. So I'm not an HDR kind of shooter, but I have worked out that you can unleash the power of HDR with the
A good raw
with the
file.
sensors from the Fujis and their dynamic range. They've got a great dynamic range, especially in the darks, and bringing down the highlights.
Yeah. I think that's part of the magic, is going out into these conditions and making the most of the equipment that you've got.
Absolutely.
I would say photographers are some of the best problem solvers that you'll find in the conversations, because we're constantly running into problems and we have to fix it. Because I mean, I'm sure with your commercial stuff as well, you'll get into a situation and there's no, hey guys, can we maybe schedule this for tomorrow? Because you got to solve that problem right there, right now.
Yeah.
And sometimes it happens. I mean, I'm sure you didn't. Did you start off with panos, or how did you end up shooting cityscapes?
So I'd done some panos before that, but they wanted, so that particular evening I realized that for me, only way for me to get the city the way they wanted was to zoom in and then do like a pano. And the Fuji just made it so easy, especially from exposing each shot. So, you know, as you move along with your pano, you don't just go click, 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 click like some people think. You got to expose every single shot, and then you've got to get your angles right. Because you go and you stitch afterwards, and you got a world of problems. So it's a lot of thinking. Where do I overlap? And the Fuji made it so easy. Also with the live. So what made it so easy for me was the live view. I'm not a guy who looks at a screen. I can't. To this day, I find it hard. But that night I had to, and it worked. It worked.
That's also part of the magic of the mirrorless systems, and we're far beyond the whole conversation of it's time to switch to mirrorless.
Yeah.
What you see is what you get.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
you see is what you get. Now, looking at across the different brands, in my experience from the store, Fuji kind of brought that to the market quite strong. And then Sony entered on the side. They were on mirrorless already, but they weren't in the country. And then all of a sudden, Canon and Nikon joined the party as well.
Absolutely.
And it's not a diss towards Nikon, but it did take them a while
Took me a little while.
to get on board with their focusing systems and everything.
Yeah,
And now,
I certainly think more from a probably from a wildlife perspective, call it wildlife action perspective, sort of thing. You know, I think their previous models were still good, sensors were good, and that sort of stuff. And I think from a studio, wedding, commercial kind of perspective, where you're not photographing things that run away.
you've got a little bit more,
You're good, you know.
you've got a little bit more control over your subject.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, but you know, now obviously, you know, it's you know, those days are obviously gone. We've got fantastic cameras all around now.
I mean,
which
it's
is
been
great,
crazy
but,
seeing how the progression came to light through all the different brands. In terms of the Sonys are also on board with their focusing systems now on the A1 II and the A9 III.
What I love is the competition. You know, I think it's awesome. I think
It's good.
They're so much more on
On par.
yeah, on par, but like trying to better each other, which I think is great for everyone. You know, I think it's like, because you see new things pop up in this brand or that brand or whatever. Like, you know that it's only going to be a matter of time before it pops up everywhere else. You know what I mean? So like, you see it come out there, it's like, yeah, you see, check, it can be done. You're like, just gotta wait it out. It's gonna come.
But it's crazy how you mentioned that, especially with some of the like one of the features that absolutely shooting Canon,
yeah.
spot metering linked to the focus point.
Please.
But are you going to beep some of this stuff out?
I know. It's like it's the most ridiculous thing in the world.
It's the other brands brought it from their DSLRs. I mean, that's one of the things that I loved about my Fuji.
Yeah.
It's where I'm one of those guys, and we'll talk about photo clubs in it. We'll complain about photo clubs.
Just now. Yeah.
We'll talk about photo clubs. We won't complain. But looking at some of I'm not worried about the background always. I'm not.
Yeah, sure.
If it's blown out, it's blown out. I want my subject to really pop in the image. And
Well, I think also
that's where I want spot metering.
Yeah.
Canon.
No, but
Center
also, I mean,
frame,
from a
circle,
wildlife perspective,
screw your
it's not something that I use often, but it's definitely something that can be used, and especially nighttime spotlight sort of stuff, which is ideal for spot metering and stuff. Obviously, we've got in Nikon, we've got that highlight rated metering, which is basically spot metering, but slightly improved on spot metering, which is fantastic for your spotlight shooting at night and that sort of stuff. But with the Canons, exactly that. You know, I'd automatically say to people, I just got a spot metering. I'm like, well, it ain't gonna work for you unless you put everything in the middle of the photograph.
Just shoot wide because you're gonna recompose in post.
So yeah, but and historically they always had spot metering linked to AF point in the Pro Series bodies.
Yeah, in the,
it's like
in
the
1Ds,
1DXs and that sort of stuff.
1DX,
and
1DX2,
I think it
1DX3.
might be linked in the R3. I'm not
So the
100% sure.
R1 and the R5 too now has a feature where it has a priority on your subject. So you still put it in the evaluative metering or matrix metering, depending on what brand you're shooting. But it's now driving a priority on the subject that it's tracking. So if you're doing like people or animals or whatever, and it's picked up a priority, then it'll kind of push the exposure, auto exposure according to that. So we're getting there.
We're getting there.
We're getting there.
No, but and then sorry, just to go back to the screen things again. We were talking about screens just now. It's like I first saw this flippy screen on the D850, and then I didn't use it a lot. I used it a little bit, but not a hell of a lot. I saw the screen. I was like, I'm gonna break that thing in like the first month. it's not gonna last. It's gonna go back. This is
a bad idea.
And I tell you what, like on the Z8 now, there's not a day that goes by that I don't use that screen. I use it all the time. Not for like photographing, but like for low angles and that sort of stuff. It's just the ability to be able to now hold the camera out and look at the screen, whatever. Okay, listen, I don't want to give my age away, but glasses are becoming necessary. Seeing the screen sometimes can be a challenge.
The optic adjustment only works that.
Luckily, the further away stuff is good. It's the close by stuff is not so lucky anymore.
I think another, just touching on that, ironically when people come into the store and they want settings changed in their cameras, and I start tapping on the screen, and I'm like, this one's old, it hasn't got touchscreen yet. But when that came out, I was like, touchscreen, that's like a sales foofy or something, and all of a sudden it becomes second nature.
You start doing it, and then when it doesn't work,
it's just easier.
It's like when you're reading a book and you want to enlarge
exactly.
I still have clients like coming up. I've got I'm still shooting on the 5D Mark IV on one of the cameras. I've got a dual camera when I do the weddings, and every time I show somebody on the 5D Mark IV, they're like, my touchscreen's disabled.
Doesn't work like that.
I want to go in there.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing what we get used to. It's like,
creatures of habit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The spot metering hasn't really phased me. I'm not going to boost here, but I'm coming from a film and film side of things. So every time that you don't have that spot metering or anything in that, obviously.
Yeah.
And once we kind of learned to get everything right on camera and get your subject right, like rightly exposed, etc. But I've been treated with the mirrorless cameras since you've kind of switched me over to it. All these influence, and it's been a blast. I mean, it's just fantastic just to not to worry about that stuff.
Have you found it's taken your work to another level?
I did, absolutely. Especially when there's groups and stuff. There's one feature, obviously, the way it's facial recognition, especially in big groups. Sometimes it goes on to the granny for some reason. I'm not sure what. I want the bride, not the granny. But long story short, it revolutionized my whole workflow and how I'm focusing on shooting.
No, listen, I think it's fantastic.
Talking about XX photographers, not triple X. There's a difference.
Photographers. None of those,
with switching Warren to Fuji.
Yes.
And I assisted him in that whole...
Warren Cremer.
Yeah, Warren Cremer. He's in Europe now, in London, I believe. But when he switched across, he also came back and he said it's completely changed his workflow photographing weddings. Knowing the camera, knowing the setup, having it fine-tuned, and knowing your lighting, he switched from shooting RAW to shooting JPEG. And he said it went down from 6 days editing to 3 hours editing, and the wedding's out.
And the nice thing is that their JPEGs, you can set the size that you want. So they got big files, so you can really work on the JPEG too, which is quite nice. But he hit the nail on the head earlier when he said it's great that the guys push one another, because all that tech comes to us.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's better.
100%. Yeah.
And then you've got guys like Sony with their latest camera, and they go, "Well, are we going with the tilt screen or are we going with a flip out screen?"
Yeah.
And they go like, "Let's just put both."
Let's put both. Yeah,
That thing
exactly.
does a full striking dragon. You're like, how do I get it back in again?
No, and that's the thing is that I think these things, all these new gimmicks and I don't want to say gimmicks, but things. Often we see it as a gimmick to start off with, and then it's like
It starts off as a
hang
gimmick.
on, this is actually pretty cool.
But I think that's it. It starts off as a gimmick. Because
Yeah.
that exactly what you said, we experienced in the store. Everybody's like, that thing's going to break.
Yeah.
I'll have that camera back in a week. I don't want that camera because that flip out screen
Yeah.
thing's going to break.
Yeah.
We experienced that I know of. Marika might have a completely different story. So but we had 2 cameras that I know of that came in with broken flip screens.
Yeah.
We sold a fair amount of cameras.
No, listen,
So it's actually not-
actually tough to try and break that thing. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like they're all pretty strong. Yeah, so
During the dancing shots especially, like I like to flip it open and kind of have my angle up there and stuff. It really, really helps. But now and again you come down and you hit the person like on the side. Sorry, but it's very durable. I was very impressed with how it.
There's
No, that was pretty
one
cool.
specific shot. A friend of mine came from New Zealand. I've told this story so many times. Friend came from New Zealand. She designed swimwear, and she had a safari. African Safari was the new range that was going to come out. And they adopted a cheetah, and we managed to arrange to shoot with the cheetah. So we went out into the veld. There were rangers with us and everything, but the cat was super chilled. It's just chilling around. One eye was blind. But in that moment, we were done with the entire shoot. And the cat just, for some reason, went and laid down in the grass. And I turned to Edna and I'm like, "Listen, do you mind just lying down next to it?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure." And she goes and flops down next to it. And thanks to mirrorless and the face tracking features and the flip out screen, everything, I could lift the camera up, get a shot down towards her lying next to this cheetah. And everything was perfectly in focus. Everything worked. If I was shooting DSLR, I wouldn't have had that shot.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing is like if you look at the where stuff have gone. I mean, like that eye tracking, that eye tracking is it's ridiculous. It's actually phenomenal. You know what I mean? And when you actually think about what
Anton's
it's doing,
sitting here
and how
going like, "No eyes in cities."
exactly.
But I see the urgency or the need for it,
Well, the thing is that it's just made it so much easier. Like we were talking about mirrorless, what you see is what you get. Like when we went from, what was the drive from film to digital? Was that you didn't have to wait to see your photograph. You could see it now immediately. And I think part of the big drives apart from the DSLR has been phased out, but from DSLR to mirrorless is you don't even have to wait until you've taken the photograph to see what it's going to be like. You can see it before you take the photograph. So like you can get your settings right. You know what you're getting. As soon as you see what you're looking for, you can just smash that button and off you go.
I think a massive turning point as well is the focusing systems. I mean, if I take what's happening in the shop here, Alroy is an avid birder. I mean, we take the guys out and we go and test the different camera systems out, and we try and get the cameras into the guys' hands as much as possible. And we'd be standing at Austin Roberts photographing ducks.
Yeah.
And you look to the side and Alroy's busy hitting swallows, swooping for water and whatever. I mean, that's second nature to him.
Yeah.
But for a guy like myself, I wanted to bring out a coffee table book, Gunther's Blurred Bird Tales, because that was my birding. That's awesome. And that's all changed. I mean, you now have to get the bird in the frame, and the focusing system pretty much does the rest.
Listen, it's an interesting thing that you bring up with that, because we say like it's made photography easier. All these things are made photography easier in a way, and I think certainly like it's highly debatable. But I mean, I always say like for me, I think one of the most challenging forms of photography is wildlife, bird life, and that sort of stuff. From a simple perspective that you've got no control over your subject. You can't say, hey, whoa, hang on, look this way, look that way, stop, just wait, let me just get the light out or whatever it might be. Like you're photographing what you see, you know.
Which line has ever WhatsApped you 9 o'clock on a Sunday evening asking for their photos?
No,
I'm joking.
Well, thankfully, none. You know, but that, you know, and I think
It is.
It's one of the guys at Ellis Park.
you know, and I think, you know, if you can get that sort of stuff right, and I think the cameras today have made that a lot easier. And I think it's a great thing. It's opened up photography and good photography to a much wider range of people.
It's a little more accessible.
Exactly, yeah. And but not just good photographs. Like there's always been quite a few photographers around, but I mean, there was a definite differentiation between a guy who was doing it like full time versus a serious hobbyist, if you want to call it that. You know, now that gap is smaller. You know, I just find myself like, obviously on Instagram you follow what you like, you know. So like scrolling through Instagram, obviously a lot of wildlife stuff and whatever. And I tell you what, like one of the downsides that I find is that the great photographs have become detrimental to the exceptional. Because now you scroll through photographs and you're like, there's loads of like, and I say they're amazing photographs, they're really good photographs. But they're like, because there's so many of them now, it's like,
But also,
you don't spend time. You know what I mean? It's like until you see that one, you're like, yo, check at that. You know. But they're so few and far between now because there's so much amazing stuff out there that just next level up is so much more difficult to achieve.
how much do you think social media has an impact on that? I mean, in the past, let's talk out. We discussed the outdoor photo classifieds and forums.
The forums and that sort of stuff. Yeah. Well, that was the place that you would go to see.
Yeah, so
that sort of stuff,
you'd have to go and sit down at your desk.
Yeah.
Open a web browser and
Dial up.
do the one finger thing, depending on how old you are. But you get onto the website and you start scrolling through, and then by chance you'll go across to the gallery and you'll see a couple of images. Fast forward to what we've got now. It's literally you're scrolling through it like this.
Yeah, it's easy access. Yeah.
All the algorithms and everything that's written, it just keeps on throwing new stuff. I mean, Facebook at a stage is promoting more other pages than the pages you're actually following.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So looking at like social media and the amount of stuff that's pushed, all of a sudden it's in your face the whole time. Like you said, it's you're being fed so much of this stuff.
But I like that because I go back to what I said earlier. You can study people's work by just looking at their work.
100%.
So you do scroll and you come across something that you go, wow. And then you think, can I do this better? What can I do? So you're pushing your own envelope. I mean, everyone knows Ansel Adams, right? So famous image of his, the moon over Arayunes. I mean, he stopped, he took out his big box. He didn't have his light meter with him. He took the image. He got back to his studio and he actually built a projector on railway wheels that he projected this thing to actually print the image. And the sky was bright. He dodged and burned it, right? So let's go to today. Somebody's going to take that picture knowing what they're going to take. And then it's gotten so good because now it's digital, right? So now you can take hundreds of shots. So you're practicing. You're not taking 24 and waiting to see what you get and go, yes, I'm actually quite bad. You're taking hundreds of shots and going, okay, that's bad, but I can do better. And then you do better and better as you go along. So I think the envelope of, and I hate competitiveness in photography, but I think the envelope of competitiveness has elevated the quality of work that one can see out there nowadays.
Absolutely.
I think the competitive. I think people are competitive by nature.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think.
I don't know what you're talking about.
But I think that's where all the debates come about. You know, like get all the brands, Canon, Nikon, Sony. What do you shoot? What do you like? What car do you drive? You know, it's we're competitive by nature. You know, but I think it's also from a photography perspective. I think it's what also pushes us.
Yes.
Because if you weren't competitive, you wouldn't strive to be like, I want to be able to do that.
100%.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because it's not like I want to be able to do that. I want to do that, but better. You know what I mean? It's like I think that's what it is. I mean, even in the commercial world. I mean, like, or wedding world, whatever it might be. Like, you look at other people's stuff, it's like, I can do that better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like
There's a big like. There's much more positives than negatives in it, but there's also a lot of negatives in the social media, obviously, because the accessibility of photography is also it has grown immensely, which is great because it pushes the envelope by means. But the problem is that clients don't do their research enough.
Sure.
Weddings specifically, not the commercial side, but then they see these amazing photographs, and some of the photographs. Social media, some people just reshare other people's work as well. That has happened as well.
Yeah.
But let's focus on just the individuals. Then they would produce amazing work, or one shot that is amazing, but the rest of the portfolio is like, and then it ruins like a wedding day or an event.
Sure.
So that's the negative on it. But the positive is the pushing of the envelope, absolutely, because you want to have your account, if you're thinking individually, your company, it needs to stand out.
Absolutely, yeah. It's like you say, it's like people not doing enough research. You know what I mean? It's like you might see that photographer has the one great photograph, but don't look at the one. Look at the
portfolio.
Look at the rest of the stuff. You know.
I think that's important. You know, people shoot for clicks, for likes.
Yeah,
so
I think that's.
They talk about content. I got to have content.
Listen, shooting for social media is definitely a thing.
It's a thing.
And I think in every industry.
So I'll often go out with guys and they because I call it spray and pray. That's what they do. And that's the challenge there too.
Yeah.
You got to look at you 100%. You got to look at the entire
Such a film
portfolio.
era thing to say.
Such a
film era thing to say. Spray.
being competitive.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like a 10,000 hour thing. If you take 1 million photographs, one's got to be good.
At least.
It's got to be.
If it's not, you can take two bad ones and try and make them
it good. Yeah. But I think.
Not only that, I mean, there's the whole editing process that's changed. I mean, you were talking about dodging and burning with Ansel Adams, and how there definitely was an era where people would come into the shop and they say, no, you don't edit your shots, you get it right in camera. Okay, that's great. And they're anti-Photoshop and anti-Lightroom and whatever. But all those things basically came out of the darkroom. It's now just a digital tool.
Yeah, no, exactly. It was just like you didn't do it before either. The people who developed your photographs did it, and mostly because it was quite expensive. If you try to do it, you had to build a whole room. You know, we had a room dedicated to it. It's not now we have a computer. Yeah. You know, that's expensive enough. But I mean, it's if you think about how try and set up a darkroom today.
Oh, it's tough.
I think a computer's cheaper.
But to come back to the editing, I found it tough, I found it very hard because I'd worked in a darkroom before. And I sat there and I thought, what am I going to do? So the one thing I do like about Fuji, they got an organic feel to the images. So I can get a film look. So for all my work, if I do print it, I'd like for it to have like a bit of a film feel. I don't like this digital, almost AI look that you get. And I sat and I thought, yes, this editing thing is tough, man. And I started sitting every single night for like 2-3 hours just working on one image to get a certain feel. And all I did was go back to darkroom. What you would do in a darkroom.
Yeah.
What are you gonna add here? If you had to do this, what are you gonna get there? Dodging and burning. Can I do this to the sky? Not dodging and burning the sky, but if I work on the highlights, what can I do if I do this? And it's changed my entire process to how I shoot. Yeah. So I go out now and I shoot for the editing. Before I take the shot, I know what I'm going to do in post-processing.
Yeah,
I 100% concur on that.
Yeah.
I've gone out so many times, and even looking back at all the shoots that I've done, I go,
you mean you do that in all the shoots?
I was in a different mind space when I went out to go and do this. And there's a specific way of editing. And I told that to somebody recently, because they'll tell me, but this shot's overexposed or underexposed or this or that. And I'm like, but there's a specific look and feel that I had in mind of what I wanted to edit, what my end result would have been.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
I think that whole conversation comes back to and the social media and shooting for likes. I can attach to the photo clubs as well.
Yeah.
So photo clubs
Yeah.
is actually quite similar to social media of lately. There's a great part of it, and I think it's a debate that we had, or let's call it a debate. But I tell people there's a good side of it, and there's a kind of a really poor or bad side to photo clubs. I love them because they get people out to go and shoot things they wouldn't normally do, and in that they pick up experience. And they also sit there, and there are 20 people in the club, and there are 20 different images, and the theme was Coke. Or Coke can, not Coke. All of a sudden, the way you're going to photograph a can of Coke versus the way you're going to photograph a can of Coke versus how you're going to photograph a can of Coke. And
it doesn't move. I ain't going to photograph it.
I'll kick it
throw it in the air, I might try.
I might do if it lies on the road.
But I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, can I throw the challenge out? You guys have a week to go
photograph
Just to photograph the
best Coke can photograph. Right, challenge set. But that just typically brings the line in, and again, you take it to the photo club, and you can experience that. You can see different ways of how it's done. Now, next week, you have to go and photograph something else, and I'm thinking of, hold on, what about how Brendon did that, or how Daniel did that, or how you did that, or and all of a sudden you're again looking at other people's work and you're adapting it and trying to make something special out of something else. But the downfall of a photo club can be how harsh the judging is. And I think people just have to be very careful of attaching emotions to the judgment on their images.
Exactly. I think that's the biggest thing, is that, and they do. I think they do serve a great purpose. The photo clubs. It's kind of like a love-hate relationship for me, because that's I tend to find that I believe they're getting better. I want to believe that they're getting better, but I still tend to find that their way of thinking is very in a box, whereas photography is way past that box stage, where something should be like this, or this is the right way to do it, or you know what I mean. I think there's many right ways to do it, and there's many different ways of doing it. Just some people might not like more than others, and as you were saying, with that the judging, is that it's that judges or two judges' opinion. Take what they say about that photograph
and process it
and say, okay, cool, he says X, Y, and Z would have been better or whatever, and like, okay, cool, yeah, I agree with him. Or no, actually, he wasn't there, so he didn't know that. Like for example, and I find some and I've heard this before, and this is why I bring it up. It's like, there's photographs of that I've seen at camera clubs where there's a lion jumping on the back of a buffalo, trying to make a kill, but the lion's kind of looking like over the buffalo's head, or the lion's head is turned because it's on the back of the buffalo. Oh, it would be nice if the lion was looking this way. It's like, you know what? You're 100% right.
Hey, Charlie.
If the lion was looking at the camera, it would be so much better. But you know what? That didn't happen. Don't see that as a negative. It's not a negative. Don't take away from. It doesn't take away from what you've witnessed and what you've captured.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like, sure, it would be nice if the lion was looking at the camera, but it's still an amazing scene and an amazing photograph. You know what I mean?
If you interfere with a kitty sitting there like, hey, ethically wise, you will be taken out of it, because that's another.
That's exactly it.
But also we've become so green these days. It's like we've become so sensitive these days to whatever. Like, one of the big things that I get from a wildlife photography perspective is, like, you're sitting in some of these hides, like these photo hides, and they're popping up all over Africa now, because they're becoming so popular. Where you go and sit in these like underground hides and these sort of things, and you're photographing.
There's one original, but it's not one anymore.
No, not one anymore. Exactly, and there's so many. So like, And one of the things I get asked all the time now is because of the mirrorless cameras, they're so quiet, or they can go into silent mode. Someone's still there with like an older DSLR or whatever it is, and like, oh, you can't use that, you're gonna scare away the animals. Like, guys, we've been photographing the same animals for the last 25, 30 years. You think all of a sudden the animals have got sensitive to this noise because we've got a mirrorless camera?
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
They never ran away 3 years ago or 5 years ago when you photographed them with a normal DSLR, and they're still not going to run away.
Why are they going to run away
I mean,
now?
it's like, you know, or we drove in here in a Land Cruiser through the bush with a diesel V8 engine, and you think your little camera is going to scare? No. Not gonna happen.
There's two things that annoy me about Photo Club, and I think there's two things that can hold people back. The learn from others, but don't become a copycat.
Yeah.
Yes.
It needs to be taught that you can learn from others, but create your own image, create your own style, so people can know your work. And the editing process comes in there to play as well. I mean, I'd like to feel that if I put an image out there, people would know it's mine without having to see my name. And that is, to me, a bit of a compliment. And the second thing is that there's no jack of all trades. And I think that doesn't get taught in Camera Club enough.
Yeah.
That although we're shooting a lot of different stuff, today we're doing a balloon that pops, and tomorrow we're doing a feather that floats, and next week it's wildlife. And find your genre, because the only way you become really good, it's like the three of us to chip away at something. And to become good in that genre.
Yeah, you find something that either appealed to you or something that you were good at.
Correct.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
See, that's why I sell cameras now. I found my niche. Looking at all I realized recently only that I think the biggest thing that I love about photography is the adventure of it. Like the places we've been out to and the things that I've seen and experienced, and how if it wasn't for photography, I would never have been there.
Yeah,
I mean, I was shooting weddings at a stage and hated the editing process and the time that I had to spend at home alone editing images, and especially if somebody decided to gooi blinkers in die confetti. But in the same sense, I loved being there on the day and just being part of something that's actually quite special to people, and I enjoyed that quite a lot. But I think I enjoyed that more than actually just creating the images.
Yeah,
that was just part of the enjoyment. The same thing about going out. We managed to get access to the top of the Telkom Tower here in Mikkelneuk.
Oh, really?
And we went straight.
Thanks for the invite.
Sorry. See what I can do. Going out on wildlife trips. I mean, all these different things, and seeing the behind the scenes and the adventures and what's happening in things like that building and the server rooms that are built into that place. I enjoy the adventure. I really, really enjoy it.
It is fantastic.
I feel that. I mean, for me, that is part of the process too. So you're going to create the image, but it's an adventure to get it, right? Yeah. And what's quite nice, like I think of, when you said that, I keep thinking back of Nature's Valley. We were at Nature's Valley the one year, and I went out early one morning. Everyone was asleep. Nobody was interested in anything. I was the only person on the beach. It was an overcast day. You couldn't see anything, and then I did a long exposure, and a bit of light broke through, and it just gave me such an awesome shot. And you're thinking, oh, I'm here. It's the adventure of seeing all that, being out there, the only person, listening to the water, and that's exciting, because now you look at the shot and you think back of that. Not just, I took a shot, everything is just...
That's absolutely. I've got a shot of a surfer standing on the rocks in St. Michael's. My first morning out playing with filters and seascapes and whatever. And I absolutely, it's one of my favorite shots. But the thing that stuck to me there was everybody else was still at home asleep. And you have to be out there to get the shot. You can do whatever you want. You can do it. You have to be out there to get the shot.
Absolutely.
Listen, I always say to people, I picked the worst kind of job in the world to not be a morning person. It's like, it's like that waking up before sunrise, before when it's still dark, to be out there at sunrise to go and look for animals to photograph and that sort of stuff. Like when you're not a morning person,
It's hard.
it's tough. But as I say to people, like I have tunnel time when I wake up in the morning. It's like when you wake up, there's this light at the end of the tunnel. But I need to get there first.
Coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Personality comes in the bottom of a cup, But the thing is, like, when you get in that vehicle and you're out there, and that sun pops up over the horizon, and you see that light,
beautiful,
and then
eh?
it was like, it is the best time of the day. I'm sorry.
And when you've taken a good shot that day, it's amazing how you think of that, and you look at the shot and you think of that. It's like it's memories that don't go away. They don't.
Yeah,
they don't
absolutely.
fade.
Yeah, 100%.
I had some encouraging words one day. I mean, obviously we have to shoot almost daily just to improve your gear, your creative outlet and everything. But someone once told me, if you're not, when you get up and you don't want to go jogging or exercising, just go walk for 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Get into it, and as soon as you start, you'll start to realize, hey, listen, I need to go. Like it's just a little motivation of, okay, let's do this. So, because there's many times where you wake up that morning and you have that tunnel, and then you like, listen, I'm not shooting today. Pick up the camera, just go do it. That's
I've got a question for you though.
Go.
I was listening to Tim the one time. I think it was at the Expo at Kailami. He did a talk on on weddings, and he got quite emotional about one of the shots where he connected with the family and with a granny and everything like that. I mean, that must be so nice for you to I mean, this is people's wedding day, right? It's the greatest memory of their lives together, and you there to capture all that.
Oof, yeah, no, there's each and every wedding, there's something special that happens somewhere, like during the duration of the day. Some is like a nice, the bouquet toss, so you get emotional about it, or something like that. But there's a lot of moments. Each wedding has its moments, and the beauty of the job that I'm in with that is that I get to experience that. That's fantastic. I mean, it's just it's exhilarating. But what's nice about it, in the 500 plus weddings that I've done, I can name each and every one. There was a moment that is like representing, like, wow, this was it for that couple. That was that for that couple. There's so many, and a lot of brides like tell me, "Hey, listen, you've seen it all." It's like, yeah, we've seen it all. But I want to
be a wedding photographer.
Crazy stuff.
You're not going to shock
at
me.
weddings. Crazy stuff happens at weddings.
But it's emotional, and it's a lot of connection. You do
That's
have that
amazing,
connection
yeah.
of it, because you're
part of those people's lives. You created their memories for them that they're ever going to look at.
Absolutely. I try to position myself, especially during the intimate shots, to be in there with them, like literally. If they're crying, I'm there, like literally there. So there's also an emotional boundary. That
I've got a solution for you for that. It's called a 70 to 200.
Oh no, but then it compresses. The background.
Not the same.
Not the same. 24/70, you're in there. But long story short is that like there's a lot of emotion that happens on the day, and sometimes you need to make that moral decision of, am I going to photograph this, or am I going to step away and give them their space?
Be tough, yeah.
So there's a lot of
Yeah,
stuff
you're
that
going to
runs
find
in you.
that when it's probably when it's appropriate, I guess.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and that's when I hate to shoot for the gram, if I put it that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because
Not the grandma, the Instagram social media.
Instagram.
We were Grammy 2 seconds ago. This is-
sorry for the gram.
People are going to be looking, what's this gram?
But I hate to shoot for that, because that means I need to shoot everything, or like the specific thing where I'm there to photograph their day.
Yes.
So I need to make that
Yeah.
moral decision that if they're going to cry over something that happened, or there's a dispute or whatever. I mean, there was times where the bride fell and she almost broke her foot. Am I going to photograph that moment? No. Or am I? Is it award-winning?
Our photographer got it all.
Is it?
No, but I mean, it's a big thing. I mean, we chatted about it just now, but I mean, still, like it's shooting for social media or for Instagram specifically, it's a huge thing, and I always say, look, because we get people coming all the time. It's like, no, but check at this and check at that. Like, you remember one thing: to make something look big at that look good at that size is easy. Because I mean, how big is a phone screen?
It's like the back of your,
you can
your
make
camera. Like, hey, this is a good shot. And you get home, you're like,
you put it on a 27-inch screen or whatever, and you zoom in or whatever. It's like, it's what I call Facebook sharp.
Love that.
It's like it's not really sharp, but it's also not really soft.
Facebook shop.
It's Facebook sharp. You know, and it's just I think it's a thing, and I think when you. So a lot of the stuff that I like to photograph, or the kind of things that are, so like, listen, I'm all for the nice tight portrait of a beautiful male lion or whatever it is, but I like the animal and the environment stuff. I like the wide open. I shoot 70-200 is probably my most used lens, closely followed by probably my 24-70. You know, so I like the animal and the environment stuff, but I don't put a lot of that on Instagram because it doesn't look great on Instagram. When you put an animal in the environment, you put it up on that wall, it looks fantastic. On a 27-inch screen, it looks great. But
cell phone, it's
on a cell phone, it's like people kind of like, what's this?
But that's
there's a cheetah on a trimway. There it is. You know, it's like it loses the impact. You know what I mean? So
I think it's part of the tougher side. We had this conversation prior to the cameras recording about monetizing images.
Yeah.
And I mean, or not just images, but in general. I mean, everybody sitting here, you're all earning money from your images, even if it's not your full-time job, if it's part-time, whatever. I mean, you're a photographic guide. You're just also a photographer.
No,
you're,
sure.
You're selling images.
100%, yeah.
But how do you monetize your images? I think is a big question that a lot of people are asking recently.
Throw money at the problem.
Peter Lick.
Get Peter Lick to market your images.
Build an amazing gallery, put photographs in there, charge $100,000 each, people buy them.
So I'll go first. It's full portfolio. Obviously, you can't see it. Get the work out of that. That's easy. But there's something else that I also do. I sell stock images for an extra outcome on the other side.
Absolutely.
But not stuff that is like the weddings and stuff. That's a no-go. Like
sure.
Go
Products.
It would be
Hey, listen, that's me.
Exactly.
Wanneer het ons vir hierdie advertensie gepost?
But yeah, stock images for me. But what do you guys?
For me, I'm very bad in that regard, where I realize I've got to set up a website, have the work, and I'll get a lot more sold. But I basically just wait for people to approach. A lot of people do see it, so I get approached quite often, which is quite nice. A lot of people are buying for websites, but with landscapes and urbanscapes, you can't make a living off it, right? But once you've got your portfolio and you've got all your images and you've got that library built up, the stuff's got to go some way. So for me, I'm slack. I think a website definitely where you've got the images, you got your pricing, and the people can basically place an order right there. I get the image through to Art of Print, and it goes out to the client. So there are ways, I think, to do it, but we just become a bit slack about it because we're too caught up in other things, like hustling our way to try and survive. You know.
Yeah, no,
Photographers aren't the best admin creatures out there.
I think it's for me, I always say to people, if you're doing photography from a full-time perspective, I think there's very few people that can say, right, well, this is what I do and this is where I make all my money. It's like normally multifaceted. It's like you say, like I do a bit of stock here.
So what else do you do?
A couple of print sales.
What's your full-time job? What do you do during the week?
No, I only do photography, but I mean, it's like so like you said, it's the photo safaris, it's the print sales, it's the workshops, it's the one-on-one training, and all of that combined is obviously what you live off. But I think the monetizing the stuff, I think it's a challenge. It's not easy, it's like
it's work.
Like you're talking about a website. A website's great. Obviously, you want your stuff out there, and a website is obviously a good thing, but it doesn't mean to say that you're going to build a website and put a bunch of photographs on there, put some prices, and now you're going to be selling prints. It doesn't work like that,
But it's similar to thing that I can point directly at your genre of photography. How many people go into macro, buy a camera because, hey man, I'm going to earn 20,000 rand a weekend shooting weddings?
There's a lot of people
I
that
was
go.
gonna
I was going to say,
comment on that just now.
yeah.
So I heard Mani, Mani Cremer, he used to do a photography talk on Mix FM. And I just happened to be in the car that evening, and he said, if I can give you people any advice, don't go into macro and buy a camera and then do your friend's wedding next week. You're going to destroy all their memories. And if you look at shooting for likes, that's what people do. So they put a lot of stuff on Instagram, they want to get noted, and then they want to go and do a wedding for $1,000. What you guys do is a whole next level, right?
Absolutely.
So exactly what you're saying. Don't just pick up a camera going, well, I'm going to make some money off this. It doesn't work like that. Because you're actually destroying people's
I'm going to start shooting.
memories.
I'm going to start shooting weddings. Yeah. Have you found that because like I think at one stage, I don't know how it is now, but at one stage, I mean, like every second stay-at-home, husband or wife, especially after COVID, was shooting weddings on a weekend or whatever it is. So has that impacted you guys at all? Like,
Absolutely. I mean, there was a big flood, if I can put it that way, right after COVID, because everybody lost their jobs, they wanted a second income, etc. So there's a lot of newcomers that comes in. But it's a yearly thing. They buy or get a camera for Christmas, and they go shoot a couple of things and think they're going to be the next, But anyways, Annie Lubavitch, for example. And then after in May-ish, I would say, it kind of dies off because they realize, okay, listen, they can't, it's not sustainable at that point. Others that pushes through, they charge their 5,000, or I'm not pointing figures or anything for anybody out there, like police, but anybody that charges under, let's say, 15K puts themselves at risk of burnout because they need to, if they're going to do it full time.
They need to do a lot.
They do need to do a lot.
I don't think they think about the fact that you've got to go afterwards and spend days working through those images and editing them.
So they say that after 5 years, if you haven't been sustainable, like doing that as a full-time job, the business is going to crumble.
Yeah.
When I do workshops, and I start off the floor always with, do you guys have any questions? Like starting off the bat, because I want to address those questions as the workshop progresses. Yeah. Every single workshop that I've done, first question, so what is your pricing? Okay, let's break it down, So there's a lot of, they think about it, but they don't think about it. But
I think it's also every industry has its margins in it. I mean, one of the frustrating parts that I find in our industry is there's hardly any margin on the cameras. The cameras is just what brings people to the shop.
Yeah, but when you're selling a camera for 100 grand, everyone thinks you're making millions.
Yeah, and what makes it even worse is when those 100,000 rand cameras go on special for 20,000 rand less for a sale.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh, yeah, you're getting 20K off of a camera, lekker. But it isn't. That's with marketing support from abroad, and there's a whole way how those prices get dropped for those specials.
I think something that's important as well that I've come to learn in time is that it's like if you look at it from a red wine perspective, for example. Like I love my red wine, but it's like you can drink 4 cousins for 50 rand a bottle, okay? Or you can drink something really lekker for 500, 600, 700 rand a bottle, And then there's a lot of stuff in between that's really, really good stuff, Do you want to be that 50 rand bottle of wine? No. I don't think anyone wants to be that 50 rand bottle of wine. It's like, so why do you want to be the cheapest hoke in the industry? It's like, no. Said no business owner ever. I want to start. This is what I want to do. This is what I want to sell, and then I want to be the cheapest oak around.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
I know a guy like that, but he's down from 4 shops to 1.
You know what I mean? It's like, no. It's like you want to be here. You want to sell a premium product or a good product, and you want to be able to justify your price because of what you can produce.
Exactly.
That is it. I don't want to be that 50 rand bottle of wine.
No, for my images, I've got people call me. They go, "I'd like to have that printed." I go, "Sure. What are you going to charge?" I said, "Well, first of all, there's a copyright cost. And I start off with a copyright cost. If that makes them balk, then they don't get the image. Because then you can go make your own one. I made the image.
Yeah.
So I'd rather not sell it than them not paying me my copyright cost. And that's it. So the copyright cost, and then I'll add the printing into it, and that's what you're going to pay.
Quite interesting with the commercial industry where we obviously there's a lot of questions regarding the copyright costing and everything. I put it in like every time, but I've noticed a lot of photographers don't do that.
But they don't.
Quite interesting and there's a lot of
Because they
questions.
bought their cameras at Macro. They said just for
They're really good
for all the
photographers.
right purposes, we've got nothing against Macro.
No, but I mean, it's exactly as you say. I mean,
But the industry is not educated in the
Yes.
sense like, okay, listen, there is a commercial cost. It is what is the commercial cost? Is it going to be for 2 years, 1 year? What's
exactly.
the implications?
yeah, absolutely.
And the copyright thing in South Africa, unfortunately, is against photographers.
Yeah,
because
that's
obviously
right.
who pays gets the copyright.
Whoever pays gets the copyright. Yeah.
But if you don't have that in clause, then you lose out as a photographer.
Yes.
So that's why I put it in. So it's actually vital to have that.
For sure.
Yeah.
You have to have it.
No, to protect yourself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, it goes back to what are you worth? Do you want to be the bottle of cousins? Or you want to be something a bit better?
Once again, nothing against cousins.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's the thing, is that you have to choose where you want to be, and you know, try and get out there and be in that sort of league. You know?
Yeah.
I like the wine. It's a good analogy.
Very.
Yeah, I mean,
There's the other side of it as well. There are different markets, and what we've seen, especially with the weddings, is that there will always be that price bracket.
Absolutely.
It's always the mamma het vir haar kameraatjie gekoop, papa het vir mamma kamera gekoop, sy gaan ophou werk. We're going to go into that kind of photography, and she's going to start a business. And maybe it's just an add-on to the house income, or in addition to it, whatever. But they're never going to invest or upskill. I mean, putting a camera into that person's hands and they go, I've literally seen people photograph weddings on auto.
Yeah, no, sure.
You're going to get the quality out of it. That's what you're going to get. But that's most likely what you paid for as well.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, if you want something better, you're going to fork out the money and you're going to buy something better. And that's where you'll fall into a different price class. I think where it really becomes difficult is because of the equipment and how easy it is. Not easy, but there is a sharper learning curve that's happening these days. And I think that's got to have a big impact on the market.
And I think that comes from photography being more accessible to a lot more people now. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, sure. I mean, we've got, when I say accessible, yes, there's lenses that are 300 grand and there's cameras that are 100 grand. You know, but there are good stuff that's not that expensive either. You know what I mean? So
What but what I've loved about the earlier discussion about how easy cameras have made jobs for us photographers is that we now don't have to worry about like checking out the exposure, etc., because we now can see it. So what we can focus on then is your composition, the storytelling, what is this photo,
the creativity side of things.
and that's where you've obviously up your game.
Absolutely. How's the video side impacted you guys? I mean that must.
So I've studied at Open Window as a visual communication artist. So we've had the sections of video, photography, design, web design, the full spectrum. So it was a very easy transition for me to go from photography to videography, and back from videography to photography. It's very simple because the thing for me is that I apply whatever I've learned in the photography into the video. And then they say a lot of videographers struggle to go from videography to photography because of they think in 25 frames per second, 30 or whatever. So they think about the story, which is great as a videographer and photographer.
Yes.
But to apply whatever you do in photography, videography to photography becomes a little bit more different. But it's a very easy transition. I mean, to shoot hybrid, it's...
Well, that's the thing is, in this world, like, we are shooting hybrid cameras now. I mean, they just as, you know, before, like some of the last DSLRs had video functions, but not like we have today.
No.
Like now you can take proper video.
So
like
so
really,
many people have
you know.
come into the store and said that they're not interested in that camera because it's video centric. And then we have to kind of guide them down that path. That thing's not, it's just also doing video.
Yeah.
And that comes back to the marketing side of things, because people now have to be marketed that, listen, that thing does video.
Yes.
It's still doing photos. It's just also doing video now, and it's doing video incredibly well.
Yeah.
So and then the stills guys see that ad and they're like, no, but I don't want a video camera. So that's obviously not the camera for me.
That is 100% one of the issues that I've actually mentioned a couple of times with marketing, and I've had people often ask me with certain cameras that have just been like released and that sort of stuff, and it's like, all the marketing around this camera is all video, whatever. Like, are the still pictures that bad? Like, no, they're not. The still pictures are great.
But what a lot of guys tend to overlook, if you're shooting at 8K, for example, and like we've done some corporate work where you're shooting at 8K and or with a RED camera or whatever, and I'm doing stills and whatever, and I don't get the still. We go back to video and we can actually pull the frame off the video.
Yeah.
It's not something I would want to print, but it's something that the client was looking for.
Yeah.
And we get that off the
Yeah,
video.
if you're not look, I think there's a significant difference between that and a proper well-taken stills photograph.
That's it,
you know,
yeah.
There's
for sure. But yeah.
the maths behind, or the physics, whichever one you want to. Looking at depending on what frame rate, what shutter speed was used, and the formula in that on the video side, a lot of people think, just go and pause it. You go and watch Avengers at 4K and you freeze any frame. The whole cinematic effect that everybody wants is slight blur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why the shutter speeds are actually quite low.
Exactly, yeah.
So, and then the maths behind it, 1080p video, a full HD video will give you a 2 megapixel frame, still frame. It's 2 megapixels. Your camera's shooting 24 and up. You go to 4K, you're sitting on 8 megapixels. You're going to 8K, you're sitting on 16 megapixels. So the maths behind it, you can sometimes get away with it,
Yeah, for sure.
but other times
For Instagram, it's great. There we go.
it's grand shot.
It's grand
I
shot.
don't mean if it's a shot for a corporate that they want to use internally.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
On our
then it's
website,
not
a
you
problem.
know what I mean? It's like it's
You
never
didn't
going to be
get it.
bigger than
There it is,
that.
yeah.
You know,
If it's something
postcard
that's
size.
I think the one crossing into the other is fantastic.
Yeah.
If it says flying Coke can, it's a different story.
Yeah.
Look forward to seeing your guys' Coke shots.
No, but listen, it is. I mean, I think I certainly find myself shooting a lot more, I don't want to say more video than stills, but a lot more video than I ever used to.
Okay.
Even from a wildlife perspective. I think people, and I think from a business perspective, you would see this a lot more as well, with people rather wanting video-orientated product shoots as opposed to just still images, or maybe a combination thereof.
Yeah.
People are great, like certainly from an advertising perspective, like we used to be able to share like a whole bunch of really cool photographs to like try and sell safaris. And it still works, it still does well, because people want to see the kind of photographs they like, but video has certainly become a much bigger thing from an...
We've definitely gone into a shift, like commercially and weddings. Weddings, we still want the photo and video. Both of them. Many still opt just for the photography. I mean, it's rare these days that they just want photography or just videography. It's normally a combo that they want to do. But long story short is, the commercial end of things, they've opted a lot more into the video, and
I'm sure.
It's a lot more storytelling, I think, at the end of the day, than just having one shot of a tequila bottle standing there, and that's it. Just put it on a billboard, great stuff. But they get a lot more traction, especially, and this is due to TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, who's moved over to
video orientated stuff.
I keep forgetting about TikTok. I don't have it, but it's a
Yeah,
big,
no,
world.
exactly.
It's a big
I can't do it. I can't do it.
I had to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah, no, I can't. I'm just like, no.
It's like I always see that meme out of Star Wars where she's going, Annie, you're going down a path I can't follow. Somebody sends me a 9-gag or a TikTok, I'm like, I can't follow.
not following. Yeah, so it's unfortunate the social media influence that it has on jobs like ours. You have to, unfortunately, stay current.
Yeah.
I've got no idea where the new trend is going to go into. Maybe a new app. We don't know, but it's definitely video.
It's amazing how like something like social media actually has so much influence that it actually dictates business-orientated practices.
Can
You know what I
we
mean? It's
talk
nuts.
about
It's ridiculous.
9x16 video?
Oh, not a fan.
Vertical video. Oh, wow.
Vertical 9x16. Yeah.
God, like,
Not 16, but 9x16.
Yeah.
You literally can't handle the whole story.
I know, it's
We
so
went to a
different.
concert last year, and I started realizing they're putting up the screens next to the stage. 9x16 vertical screens,
Vertical
not
screens.
horizontal.
Yeah.
Like, no man, the eyes aren't there. They're there. They're not vertical. They're horizontal. Next to one another.
No, I must say,
Why?
I find it difficult because like it's still now even when because cell phones video has also got so good and it's great for the gram, you know. So I still have to remind myself that I can't do this. Okay, let's turn it this way around. That's the way it needs to be.
The shifting point for me was with the DJI's Ronins that they've actually included. I think it was with the DJI RS2 or RS1 or something that they actually made it like you can actually tilt it to be vertical and not horizontal.
Okay,
And that's actually where my mind shifted into vertical shooting.
yeah.
The
Let's do that.
Mavic 4 Pro from DJI now
Yeah.
comes out with my first TV wasn't even that big. It's like a tablet-sized screen on the controller.
Wow.
So you're flying this thing, and obviously for the gram you need to shoot vertical. You grab the screen and you just twist,
Oh, no.
Oh goodness me.
and the
And then it
camera on the drone goes,
Wow.
and then it's
No
shooting
ways.
vertical video
What's that on the Mavic 4?
That's
on the new
nuts,
Mavic 4 Pro. Yeah.
But for landscape, how does that impact you?
It doesn't.
He shoots banners, so he's shooting vertical and stitching them.
Lots of sky.
Thing, when I shoot buildings and I want to make a portrait out of a building,
Yeah.
I'll have it in portrait orientation.
No, sure. Yeah.
And I also found years ago that you'll put images out there and you see the response from people, and it's what they're not used to. So what they are used to are the buildings being dead straight. If you're going to shoot wide, they're going to distort. If you
Yeah.
shoot
Vertically.
you get the shot, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, it doesn't really affect me, but I can understand with video, man. I wouldn't want to watch. It'll drive me insane.
Where's the rest? Where
We're
are the
gonna
other two-thirds
just
of my
now.
screen?
Just now, we're going to be watching the new Discovery or National Geographic wildlife documentary.
Vertical.
I think you're back to watching Rion Kruiwagen, man.
Yeah. Guys, I want to thank you very much for coming through in the show, sitting down. It's the first. Hopefully, this will not be the last. We'll do one of these in a month, hopefully. I don't know. Amrish still has to edit this, so we'll find out where it's going to go. But thank you very much for driving through and joining us for this chat. I think it's been lekker. I hope you guys at home have watched this to the end right here. Thank you for watching if you have. And please hit us up in the comments section below. Tell us what you guys would like to hear and see more of. Thank you for watching. We look forward to sharing more of this content with you guys. Cheers.